What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and it is release day for City Skylines 2, which I'm super excited about. However, it is a bear for your computer. Like, it is just totally taxing on the graphics. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you graphics settings that everyone should use, from those using budget computer systems all the way to those who are on high-end systems and everything in between. But first, download Gemstone Legends, a mobile RPG puzzle match game. Use the link in the description to start with free stuff, including a bonus hero. Alright, so you've heard that City Skylines 2 is going to be awesome, so you bought the game, you installed the game, you started a new game, and you were immediately disappointed. Because when you got in, you saw that the graphics were not that good, and not only that, it's kind of choppy. Like, what's going on here? Did I make a mistake? Did you make a mistake? Well, I don't know. That remains to be seen. We got to actually play the game to find that out. But we can fix the graphics. We can make it not only look better, but we can make it perform better too. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my stats so you can see what's going on here. And no wonder it's choppy. I've got like an upper mid-range kind of graphics card. It's an RTX 3080 made by NVIDIA. And I'm only getting 24 frames per second. Sometimes 23, sometimes 25, and I haven't even built anything yet. So let's go in here to the settings. I'm going to click Escape, Options, Graphics, and I'm going to tell you the 5 things that everybody must absolutely change when you get into the game, whether you have a budget system or a high-end system. And the first one we're going to change is this VSync here. Make sure to uncheck that. That messes with not only how the game looks, but sometimes it can have an impact on the frames per second. Although I've seen some other settings have a bigger impact on the actual FPS. One of which is this depth of field mode. It's set to physical right now on my system. Go ahead and select disabled and watch what happens to the frames per second. Look at that just go up. In fact, I'm going to jump back into the game here. You can see that the frames per second isn't even really impacted by the menu. It's kind of cool that they did that, that when you're in the menu, the game is actually still running so that you can see the FPS change in real time. But now you can see this is at least a lot smoother. So let's go back into the settings here. The next one we're going to look at is dynamic resolution scale quality. Just make sure that is disabled. There was a mod in City Skylines 1 that had a similar name that made it so that you got a significant performance boost when you went into areas of the map that just demanded a lot from your graphics card and processor. But this one, it does not perform like that one, and it causes a lot of problems. It actually makes your game look really bad. So this one's going to affect the appearance more than the performance, but you should absolutely disable that one. The next one is this fog quality settings. And you're going to go ahead and just click disabled. It's actually going to change how the game looks. Some people might prefer the fog because the fog looks kind of realistic, but it gives you a nice performance boost. You can see this is what the difference looks like just an absolutely perfect, beautiful day. This one can come down to preference. If you have a higher end system and you don't want to just straight up disable that, you can enable it and then go down here to volumetric quality settings and just turn that on low, because you can see when I go back into the map, well, the fog actually doesn't look terrible. It actually looks pretty good if you want to look at the fog. But some people don't like how that looks. It makes it look washed out. So I'm just going to go ahead and suggest that you disable that. Now, the last one that everybody should change has to do with the anti-aliasing. Let me show you something when we dive back in. In fact, some of you were probably wondering about this already. Look at the trees. This looks so bad. What is going on? This is like, they're like flashing. It's like, what? It's something with the shadows, I think. And the only way that I could make it not flash in my first run through was just to turn the shadows off, but that looks terrible. So I have a better solution for you on this one. We're going to jump back into the graphics settings, and then we're going to click on advanced at the top here, and then scroll down to this anti-aliasing where it says anti-aliasing method, subpixel morphological AA is what mine was set to. Drop that down and click on TAA, okay? Once you do that, we jump back in and look at that. That is a lot better. Okay, this is already starting to look much, much better and perform much better. In fact, note the FPS. I'm already getting almost double, not quite double, but almost double of what I was getting before, and the game already looks so much better. But there's a lot more we can do depending on the quality of your build. So let's take a look at each of the different types of builds that people have, starting with budget and what settings you can adjust on there. For the budget builds, and this means that you're running the absolute minimum requirements as far as hardware goes. And when it comes to graphics cards, that's like an NVIDIA GTX 970, which only has 4 gigabytes of VRAM. And this game is really demanding of your VRAM. You're not going to have a good experience with VRAM that low, but hey, at least you can run the game with that. Or an AMD Radeon RX 480, which is like 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So if you have graphics cards like that, and take a look at the other minimum requirements, make sure you have at least that. But the graphics card is just so impactful to your experience with this game. That's what you're looking at for even just being able to run this. And I don't care if you have a 1440p monitor or 4K, you absolutely cannot run this game in those resolutions. At most, you can run this in 1080p. So change this and watch what happens to my FPS in the upper left-hand corner. You're going to see that go from about 41 up to 55, 56, 57. I've seen this hit 60 when I changed it to 1080p. So that's an increase of about like 30% in performance. That means that this game is going to run a lot smoother when you do that. Now, if you have a budget system, you're also going to need to go to global graphics quality and change this to very low. I mean, if you have the minimum requirements as far as hardware goes, you're going to run this on the absolute minimum settings. But when we jump back in, take a look at this. It looks like some kind of game from the 1990s. The graphics quality is so low, but if this is how you have to run the game, this is how you have to run it. Now, this looks bad. This looks really bad, but we can actually make this look better even on these low settings. So the very first thing we're going to do is, remember, everybody should be doing this, but when you change this setting to very low, you have to go back to dynamic resolution, scale quality, and change this to disabled. Look how big of an impact that has. That is so much better, right? Okay, another thing you can do if you want a little bit of improvement to how it looks is to go down to level of detail and change it from very low to low. You're going to notice my FPS really doesn't change. In fact, it went up for some reason. When you look around here, you can see now I've got a super smooth experience. And this doesn't actually look terrible, at least with how we started. Now let's take a look at some of the mid-range settings. So this means you probably have like an NVIDIA 20 series type of graphics card. You have to keep this at 1080p. As you saw, we got a huge increase to FPS just by doing that. Most people are probably going to be playing at 1080p in this game. And when we go to global graphics quality, we're going to start with low settings on this one. And we have a lot of work to do here because whenever we go back in, you're going to see this is back to looking absolutely atrocious. So back into the graphics settings, the first thing we need to do is change this dynamic resolution scale quality to disabled. And we have to go back to advanced because it changed the anti-aliasing method to this fax approximate AA, which is causing the flickering in the trees again. So we're going to select TAA. And then we're going to back out, and you can see we got a huge improvement in how things look and perform here on this one. So now I'm going to go back in because there's a couple more things we want to do here. Again, make sure fog is disabled if you want a little bit of an increase in performance again, and appearance. Some people just don't like that washed out look. And then go down here to motion blur. There's just no reason for motion blur in a game like this. It is not an action game. I'm not even sure why it's included in here, but all it does is sap your system. If you want to try and make things look a little better, you can bump this level of detail to medium and see what that does for you. You can see it really doesn't affect my FPS all that much to bump that level of detail up, and this is what I get. Now, look how smooth that is and how good that looks now. Of course, once we start building, that's going to be a different story, but at least you got something to start with. For those with upper mid-range systems like what I have, which would be like an NVIDIA RTX 3080, or somewhere around that 3000 series of graphics cards, or the same time period for AMD, then you have two main choices with this. One is you could keep the same settings that we just used for the mid-range builds, but bump the resolution up to 1440p, which I'm going to do right here. And you can see that it really doesn't affect my frames per second all that much. But look at the quality of this picture now. This is absolutely fantastic looking. Like, I could do a lot of streams with this, and it's performing really well. You can see I'm like maxing out at 60 frames per second. Even though my game's not limiting that, I have to check the internals of my system. Something is limiting me to 60 frames per second, but I can guarantee you if it wasn't limiting that, this is going way over top of that. So that's one way you can handle this. If you want to play in 1440p, just use those like mid-range settings, mostly on lower, increasing the level of detail a little bit. Or you can go back in here and you can keep this at 1080p and try to get more out of the other settings by going to global graphics quality. We're going to change this to medium. So now almost everything is going to be on medium. We're talking like shadows and all different types of rendering and things like that. Remember, dynamic resolution scale quality, we need that to be disabled. Just check in the anti-aliasing method that it is going to be TAA so that you don't get the flashing trees. We're going to, again, disable the fog because you just really don't need that. Motion blur can be disabled there too, and the level of detail should be fine at medium here, but if you want to try and put it up at high, you certainly can. We can take a look at how that looks. This is 1080p now. Personally, I think that the 1440 looked really nice, but the 1080p with the higher settings looks good too. And if we go back in and I go down to the level of detail and increase it to high on 1080p, this is what we're going to get here. Honestly, I don't see much of a difference there, so you can probably just keep that on medium. And lastly, for you high-end enthusiasts who like to build your own computers and have the absolute best hardware, and so I'm talking like right now, as of October 24th, 2023, you've got like 4000 series NVIDIA graphics cards, the equivalent in AMD, and just the best processor and everything. Go ahead and pick 1440p. I would not go higher than that. This is about the max you're going to want to go. This game just really can't handle 4K at this moment in time, no matter what kind of hardware that you have. You can set the global graphics quality to high, but we are going to lower or disable some of these settings. Some of the ones are ones that we already looked at, like dynamic resolution scale quality is already disabled. You want to make sure to go back into the advanced settings, make sure that this anti-aliasing method is TAA. We are also going to go down to the fog settings and disable that. But again, if you're a high-end enthusiast and you really have to see the fog, you can set it to enabled and volumetrics quality settings to low, and you still get a really nice look there. So that is kind of your choice with that particular one. What we're also going to do, I'm just going to disable it though, the fog quality. What we're also going to do is go down to depth of field quality, and you can set that to low. That's fine in this one. You can even turn it off, and you like, look, this doesn't really have a big impact on how things like look whenever you have that disabled or you set that to low. So I'm going to do that. We'll go back and I'll show you again, like hardly any difference there. So it just depends on how it's affecting your system and what you want to use for that. Level of detail is a lot at high. So I would actually recommend, for a smoother performance, and this is the only time I'm recommending you actually turn this one down, but get a few more frames per second out of this, and it still looks really nice. Like, in fact, let me go down here and let's go back and turn that one to high. And I'm going to show you, there's a point at which there's diminishing returns. Like, that just really doesn't look any different to me. So you might as well get the little bit of performance uplift to it, even if it's just 2 or 3 frames per second. That's how I feel about that. Now, Let me end with this. If you fired up this game, you were so excited about it, you got in and you're disappointed with how your computer is running this, even after changing some of the settings, there are some hardware upgrades you can do. There's two main ones that are going to have the biggest impact on how you play this game, how it looks, and how it performs. The first is absolutely your graphics card. Just get the most modern graphics card you can that has the most VRAM. You're going to want at least 10 gigabytes of VRAM in a graphics card or higher in order to run this game smoothly. So go for something like that. Even if you go 3000 series NVIDIA or higher 4000 series, something like that, that's going to be pretty good. You're going to notice a big difference. And in fact, you're probably going to enjoy playing a lot of other games if you upgrade that graphics card too. It's about time. The second thing that you can do is upgrade your RAM. If you have less than 16 gigabytes of RAM, I can imagine you're having a really tough time running this game. You need at least 16 gigabytes of RAM. I have 32. I would recommend going up to 32 if you can, if you really want to have an enjoyable experience in this game. So those are my recommended settings as far as the graphics go and what hardware you can use to improve the game. If you enjoy videos like this and you want to see more like it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, and I will catch you in the next one.